Morning, everyone. Welcome to you all, and thanks for joining us today for our webinar, Bridging the Digital Divide. I'm Emma Good. You might have been expecting to see Angela, who is on the call with us today, but she's having some connectivity problems, so I'll be your host this morning. But I'm also joined by Angela and another colleague, Vanessa, who are doing some admin in the background and will be manning the sort of chat and questions and answers. So in today's webinar, we will be exploring digital inclusion and its impacts on the cost of living crisis in Wales, particularly in our rural communities. As town and community councils, you can play a crucial role in tackling these challenges and creating more connected, resilient areas and communities. So despite advances in infrastructure, digital exclusion remains a major issue. Around 7% of all adults in Wales are offline, and over half of rural residents report poor internet access. Nearly half of our deprived rural areas also lack 5G, so that limits access to essential services and opportunities. And the effects of that are wide-ranging. Local businesses struggle to grow without reliable internet, and residents face barriers to vital services like online healthcare, education, and government support. Isolation increases, particularly for older adults, and job opportunities are harder to access as more employers require digital applications and remote work skills. To bridge this gap, we must improve infrastructure, promote affordable broadband, and provide digital skills training. Discounted internet tariffs, device loan schemes, and community support initiatives can make a real difference. Boosting digital inclusion helps ease the cost of living crisis. Online services reduce travel costs, open up employment and education opportunities, and improve healthcare access. Stronger connectivity leads to stronger communities. As council members, your leadership is key in ensuring no one is left behind, and together we hope we can build a more inclusive and digitally connected Wales. So I'm happy to say that we're going to be joined today by several guest speakers, including councils that have made great progress in this area. So firstly, we'll be joined by Dewi Smith from Compass, who will share how they can support councils with training and digital inclusion initiatives. Then Councillor Maggie Kirk from Rhossili Community Council will talk to us about their successful laptop loan scheme and digital training for residents. And then finally, we'll be joined by Councillor Neil Walters from Llwchor Town Council, who will talk about plans to set up a digital cafe to support the local community. So we look forward to hearing their insights and experiences. I will first hand over to Dewi from Compass for his presentation. Bore da.
Bore da. Good morning, everybody. Yes, thank you for inviting me here this morning. My name's Dewi Smith. I'm one of the programme managers on the Digital Communities Wales Digital Confidence, Health and Wellbeing programme, bit of a mouthful. The programme's delivered by Compass. It's Welsh Government's national procured digital inclusion programme, and we've been this current iteration, this current programme has been running since 2019. At present, we're due to run through until September this year. Welsh Government have recently been doing some work consulting on what future digital inclusion policy looks like, and we're hopeful to know a bit more about that direction of travel in the next couple of months. Obviously, recognising the importance of digital inclusion, I think Emma touched on a number of points in terms of the impacts of digital exclusion on communities right across Wales. Compass have been delivering digital inclusion activity, I think, for about 18 years now in various different guises through various funding sources and in a variety of different ways. The current programme has a fairly significant focus on health, but as well kind of considering all the other areas that digital exclusion impacts as well. So I guess we'll start with, what does digital inclusion mean? So from our perspective, it means having the access, motivation, and skills to be able to effectively navigate the online world. So much of modern society revolves around digital and engaging with public services digitally, and obviously there's a massive amount of digital transformation that's happening, and there is a danger that people get left behind with kind of sweeping changes to the way that you access public services. So firstly, on the slide, if we look at access, when we talk about access, we're talking about access to a device or connectivity. And that can be impacted in a number of different ways. Obviously, the cost of living crisis had quite a significant impact on the affordability of connectivity, be that mobile data or broadband. And, you know, a number of studies conducted at the height of the cost of living crisis identified that mobile phones and broadband were some of the where difficult choices needed to be made around what bills get paid. They were some of the first things to be sacrificed. So yeah, you know, it's critical that people have access to a device and connectivity to be able to engage in the online world. Motivation has historically been one of the big barriers. You know, people kind of generally saying there's no need for me to go online. There's nothing for me there. Partly that was potentially due to fear of the online world. I guess there's a number of factors that feed into that. In a lot of instances, you know, and from what we've seen from our work, telling somebody that they need to do something digitally, that they need to complete a form, that they need to do this or that to access a public service isn't necessarily the most effective way of getting people to engage online. You know, we've historically talked about the hook, the thing that engages people, the thing that sparks interest. So kind of tapping into people's personal interests and hobbies to try and show them that certain things can be done digitally and that there's a whole world of stuff out there. Critical one, digital skills, and this is probably one of the areas that we focus on most at Digital Communities Wales. Obviously, by building those digital skills, people gain confidence and they are better able to navigate the online world safely. But again, it's a slow process, and again, it's tapping into those interests and providing and developing those skills in a way that's kind of very person-centered as well. And obviously, everybody's journey is a little bit different in terms of kind of learning. So being able to offer digital skills training in a variety of different ways, you know, depending, like I said, on the person's interests, or, you know, specific cohorts of people might want to access learning in a different way. So I will touch on some of the things that we do to help develop digital skills. And finally, it's about helping people. It's about providing support. And those of you on the call today are probably very well placed in town and community councils, having those hubs in communities where people come for kind of general support. So kind of being able to tie in digital inclusion support it could be a really effective way of including more people. So the current digital inclusion landscape in Wales. So these are the most up-to-date statistics from the National Survey for Wales. It hasn't been done for the past few years. I believe it will be done again next year. So approximately 7% of the population of Wales are not online. Obviously, as I touched upon in terms of the affordability side of things, that figure kind of oscillates a little bit, so it does go up and down. But 170,000 people who are not online, so that's quite a significant number. I think more importantly than that is the fact that 22% lack essential digital skills. So people who are online lack skills in one of the 5 areas of essential digital skills, which can obviously mean there are kind of challenges there, and they might not be navigating the online world safely. There are certain groups who are more likely to be digitally excluded, and you can see from the slide there that the proportion who lack skills in one of those 5 areas increases to 59% for people over 75. So older people, people with disabilities, people with limiting long-term health conditions are all more likely to be digitally excluded, as well as people living in rural areas, people who are financially excluded, homeless people, people living in social housing. There's a whole range of people who are going to be affected either by access to a device and connectivity or through skills and motivation. There are lots of other statistics out there. I'm going to talk about one of our program partners, Good Things Foundation, shortly. There's lots of studies there on the cost of being digitally excluded, and how much money can be saved per year if you are included. And also Lloyds Bank Foundation, Lloyds Bank produced the Lloyds Digital Index on an annual basis as well, which goes into quite a bit of detail around the factors impacting people, and yeah, kind of break it down into lots of really kind of snazzy statistics. So yeah, there's lots of sources of information around this, but these are the kind of headline figures based on the National Survey for Wales, which obviously has a pretty significant sample size. So our programme aim is to embed and mainstream digital inclusion within identified thematic areas, ensuring ownership of digital inclusion by existing stakeholders and organisations. Ultimately, what that means is we want to build capacity within organisations and communities across Wales to ensure that digital inclusion support can be provided to the individuals who need it most. We're one programme, and we recognise we can't do all this ourselves, and as such, the way that we work is with and through organisations to build capacity by developing digital champions and offering a range of training and kit loans, etc. I'll go into a little bit more detail around the specifics that we do there. The dates on the slide. So the reason for this aim and the reason that it's kind of running until well, for a year and a half from last year is that we had a little bit of a scare Christmas 23 where Welsh Government notified us that the budget for the final year of our contract was going to be cut in half. So we really wanted to focus our attention on building that capacity and embedding digital inclusion within the organisations that we were working with. So hence this aim. That cut didn't actually happen in the end. So we've been able to kind of progress, but we carried on with the same aim, recognising going into the last year of the contract, it was very important to try and develop that sustainability and ensure that there's a lasting legacy for the programme. So these are our thematic areas of working, and this is in line with the aim that I gave. So kind of focus for the last 18 months of the project. So focusing on health, social housing, older people, ethnic minority communities, Gypsy Roma traveller communities, and social care. So this isn't to say we've continued to work with local authorities, and we've done a lot of work with One Voice Wales around promoting the digital inclusion agenda, and working with One Voice Wales as well around kind of looking at their work around digital maturity, and the developments that have been happening there with the digital health project. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about these thematic areas. We've got a fair bit of flexibility in what we can do, and yeah, you know, we're always here to help if communities are interested in digital inclusion or are interested in supporting their local communities. So as I've said, with the National Digital Inclusion Programme delivered by Compass, aligned with the programme, we have the Digital Inclusion Alliance Wales as well. So this is a network of organisations from across Wales working together to make Wales a digitally inclusive nation. It's coordinated by Digital Communities Wales, but it is standalone. We've got a really good membership. I believe there's over 100 organisations across the public, private and third sector who are part of the Alliance. The Alliance has published a couple of agendas, so setting out their priorities in terms of what they're trying to achieve. The focus is very much about embedding digital inclusion and kind of recognising its importance. And there's more information. I believe the slides will be shared afterwards, and there's links so you can do further reading on those bits as well. So how can we help? So in terms of our structure, we have a team of advisors and a team of trainers based right across Wales. Our advisors will go out and speak to an organisation and undertake a bit of a consultation, identifying areas where we could potentially support, where upskilling would help, and where various resources would help as well. In order to help us with this and to understand where organisations are at and where their kind of staff's digital skills are at, we have a digital skills audit. And we have undertaken audits with all manner of organisations across Wales. So from local authorities to third sector organisations, private sector organisations, yeah, large and small. So I think we've done some really big ones with some local authorities where we've had responses from about 700 staff, and obviously by undertaking that audit, we're able to, well, a lot of times some organisations might overestimate or might overlook some of the areas of digital skills, some of their staff's levels of digital skills. And yeah, this can be a really useful way to understand where support can be best focused. Device loans. So this is something that's grown over the course of the project, and recognizing that access to a device can be quite a significant barrier. So we offer loans to organizations. So for instance, for community councils, I know that we have provided loans of devices where those organizations or those councils are then able to loan those devices to their community or make them available in a community venue. Our device loaning scheme will be coming to an end shortly as the current program winds down. But if you do have an interest in that, do get in touch with me, and we can discuss options there as well. Training digital champions. So since April 2024, and again in line with that aim of embedding digital inclusion within organisations, we've had a bit more of a focus on developing digital champions. So ultimately giving people the skills to be able to support others. And being a digital champion isn't necessarily about being a technological whiz, being able to do everything. It's very much about having some digital skills, but more importantly, being able to support somebody else and understanding how to communicate and how to transfer skills to those individuals in a supportive way. So yeah, we deliver Digital Champions training on a variety of topics, yeah, depending on the area of focus. We have our Digital Inclusion Charter, which demonstrates organisations' commitments to digital inclusion. It sets out 6 principles that the organisation will adhere to. Ultimately, it's around kind of supporting staff and supporting the people that you work with where those opportunities arise. We do a lot of sharing best practice and bringing people together as well. So I talked about the Digital Inclusion Alliance. Bringing the weight of those organizations together really helps amplify the voice and helps change happen in terms of the way things are done and kind of in terms of recognizing the importance of digital inclusion. And on our website, we have lots of different case studies and yeah, shared lots of different ways that digital inclusion can be embedded, hoping that organizations can take some inspiration from those. I've lost my cursor for a second. There we go. So training support from us, as I mentioned, the Digital Champions training sessions, they very much explore the practicalities of helping others. I think something that might be particularly relevant to this group is something that we have been trialing and developing more recently, which is developing our tea and tech sessions, which have been really popular. Ultimately, it's about identifying different ways of passing on digital skills. So with the tea and tech sessions, we have been supporting organizations developing their digital champions internally, so delivering training to their staff and volunteers so that they're able to support people, creating a suite of resources as well. So on our website, we have lots of resources and tools that can be used to support others. We're running a small pilot where we're working with a few organisations across Wales where we are going in and supporting on a face-to-face basis maybe the first 2 or 3 tea and tech sessions so that those digital champions that have been trained within the organisations can gain a bit of confidence and see how those sessions work, with the aim then for those sessions to continue through those kind of staff and volunteers who have been trained. We do have a range of open access training session webinars that we offer on our website as well. There's a good range of stuff on there. I think things that are currently there, we have a session on AI, which is really interesting. Obviously, AI is going to do everything before we know it, apparently. But yeah, the session really gives a bit of an insight as to, it's very much an introductory session, but it gives you an insight as to how various AI tools out there can support you and can be applied to different parts of your organization and the ways that you work. We also have a number of Digital Champions sessions on there and sessions around using the NHS Wales app. So at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about the wide-scale digital transformation that's happening. If you look at areas where there's been the biggest pushback and resistance to using digital ways of doing things, I would say banking is one of those areas. I would say health is another one of those areas, and they're obviously 2 things which are really important to people, and obviously areas where kind of privacy and security concerns would be the biggest barrier. With health, so the NHS Wales app has been, I don't know if they've called it a soft launch, but it's being rolled out. It's currently being rolled out, and there's going to be more publicity and more of a push a bit later on this year. But recognizing that can be quite a step for people, from actually speaking to your practice face to face to actually doing things digitally and online. And there's obviously a number of factors there in kind of verifying your identity on the app. There's lots of steps that can present barriers. So we've got training sessions on that and how you could support somebody to use the app. And obviously it is really useful. There's lots of benefits to it, and it does make things a lot easier and a lot clearer. But again, it's about communicating those benefits and trying to overcome the fears, and obviously recognizing that there should be non-digital means for people to access services as well, recognizing kind of equalities duties, and other other things of that nature, particularly, sometimes if you're kind of looking for that non-digital way of accessing a service, that can be some phone number that's hidden on a website, which is obviously not very accessible for people as well. So, from our point of view, is a case of striking that balance. And yeah, we provide advice and support and signposting to relevant local provision whenever it's needed as well. So there's a number of tools and resources out there for identifying where people can access support. So Welsh Government have created a map. So we provided them with, well, they did some work with the Centre for Digital Public Services, but we provided a load of data around places within communities that offer digital inclusion support. A lot of these are libraries, but there's a whole range of kind of community venues that offer that type of support. So there's a map called How to Help Someone You Know to Get Online, which you can search and kind of drill down into. It hasn't been updated for about 18 months, so it's due to be refreshed. And obviously, a lot of those places are still providing digital inclusion support, but I should imagine that some of them might not be, just for a variety of factors, just due to the amount of time that's passed. There are other organisations working in Wales, and I'll go on to talk a bit more about our project partners, Good Things Foundation, in a minute. But one organisation is AbilityNet. So they have technology volunteers dotted around Wales. There's certain areas where they have more. There's certain areas, I think, where there's a kind of lack of volunteers. I think Mid Wales, there's probably not as many as they would like, but they are able to provide free IT support to older people and disabled people of any age anywhere in the UK. They also have a advice helpline as well, which people can call, which is obviously great, particularly for supporting people in their own homes. There's a number of digital inclusion projects as well operating at local authority levels. So this has kind of come about as a result of the Shared Prosperity Fund, and different local authority or areas recognizing the need to provide digital inclusion support in their local authority. So Compass had 2 digital inclusion projects. Well, we've got one, Digital Confidence Denbighshire, which we're hopeful will be running for another year. So that provides support in community venues, intensive training directly to citizens. And we had a project in Powys as well, which ended at the end of December, very much offering with the same offering, working in libraries and community venues, and providing essential digital skills directly to citizens. So working in a slightly different way to Digital Communities Wales, where we work through organisations. Also, just to mention, so AbilityNet also have a project where it was formerly Citizens Online in Gwynedd, called Gwynedd Digidol, which provides supports to communities across Gwynedd. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, that was the translated slide in there. So digital inclusion hubs. So DCW's, Digital Communities Wales' programme partner, Good Things Foundation. So they're a national digital inclusion charity, and I talked about some of the great work that they do around creating reports and kind of looking at the current digital inclusion landscape across the UK. They also run a network called the Digital Inclusion Network. So these are hubs, community venues. So a lot of those places that on the map that I referred to on the previous slide are members of the National Digital Inclusion Network. So these are community spaces, as I said, a lot of libraries there, but a whole range of community centres, community pubs, which at the very minimum offer public Wi-Fi, but are likely to also offer other things as well. So maybe access to a device at the location. There may be a volunteer or a member of staff who's able to provide some support. And in addition to these things, so members of the National Digital Inclusion Network can become members of the National Data Bank. So Good Things Foundation have worked in partnership with UK government, but with the private sector as well. So working closely with O2, Vodafone, and Three to be able to offer SIMs to communities. So essentially, it's like a food bank, but for mobile data. So provides free mobile SIM cards to help digitally excluded people get connected. So any organisation that's part of the Digital Inclusion Network can become part of the National Data Bank, and it's proved to be really useful. There's kind of not many hoops to jump through at all. You can join the network. You ask for a number of SIMs, you get sent a number of SIMs, and there's lots of different organisations that have joined the data bank. So there's some local authorities which are part of it. So I know in Flintshire, their Connect centres the local authorities are part of the data bank, so the Connect centres are able to offer SIM cards to individuals who might need mobile data. They also run something called the National Device Bank as well, which isn't quite as established as the data bank. And obviously there's the kind of logistics of ferrying devices around is a little bit more challenging than SIM cards. But yeah, again, if you're part of the National Digital Inclusion Network, you were able to access that as well. So those would be refurbished devices, which can be then offered to communities. They also have an online learning platform called Learn My Way, which is available in English and Welsh, which offers a really good range of sessions, little bite-size pieces of learning, which really guide you through from the very basics to kind of slightly more advanced digital skills as well. And it's all presented in a very accessible, understandable way, which it shouldn't be off-putting. And yeah, it's like I said, it's really well structured. And I mentioned the local authority approach to being a hub or a data bank. Okay. just on the broadband side of things, and something I didn't mention, and it's a link I'll send through to Emma as well, is there is a website with a list of all the social tariffs available for broadband, where broadband can be offered. I think it's some of the cheapest ones are around about 15 to 20 pounds a month, so more affordable than than a lot of the regular kind of broadband packages out there. So I think that is one option.
Hi. Yes,
Hi.
thanks. Hi, thanks. Thanks for that presentation today. It's really interesting, and I've taken a lot of notes from what you said. I'm very interested from the council I'm in to find out more about what's available locally and if there is anything we can support with. I just got a quick question about you mentioned about motivation being one of the areas to look at, and I'm particularly interested in terms of those who are currently digitally excluded. Is there any data on the take up and the level of interest among those, and particularly with older people, related to my mum, who's got the means and the ability, but absolutely no interest in using digital platforms at all. So is there any data on the interest? So how effective it is reaching out to people who perhaps don't appreciate the benefits of being digitally included at the moment?
Yeah, kind of the motivation side of it. I guess there's kind of a few layers to it, and I think it's one of those kind of catch-all, almost a kind of defensive response to a question, isn't it? And I think that's something that was flagged by the Lloyd's Digital Index a couple of years ago. So definitely before the pandemic, motivation was one of the key reasons given, but that's probably a cover for going, well, there's an element of fear here. There's an element of the unknown. You don't know what you don't know in terms of what the benefits might be and what the digital world offers. So definitely in terms of responding to survey questions, I think that motivation covers a number of things, and probably, ties in with the skills, confidence, fear for security and privacy. From the other side, in terms of looking at what might motivate an individual to get online, yes, it's kind of identifying the benefits, but what we have found in lots of instances is, yeah, finding that one thing that interests somebody. So that one hobby, or somebody, they what we've found in a lot of settings is someone might have gone on holiday somewhere once, and using something like Google Street View to take them back there and go around, or just those little things which are quite simple, where somebody goes, oh, actually, I didn't know you could do that. Or even if it was just looking at kind of YouTube videos, or there's lots of stuff that we've done with kind of archives and kind of BBC Remark and the People's Collection, all of these things where people might have an interest in something where the internet offers a whole world of opportunity in terms of exploring that and kind of looking a bit more deeply into that, whether it's family history and stuff as well. That's proved to be quite a popular one. So it's not always easy, and it's not always quick, but a lot of the time you are able to find something that resonates with somebody, and a lot of the resources that we have on our website focus on that, and they give examples of the types of activities that you could undertake with the person to try and find that hook and kind of get that little spark of inspiration to explore things a little bit further.
Yeah, no, thanks, Simon. I think it is important that they know there'll always be some who won't choose to engage, and certainly locally, one of the issues that's been raised in our council is about not forgetting those who, either because they can't or won't get involved, that we don't lose sight of the fact they still need levels of communication, support them to access other means of doing things if they're not going to get online. So it's almost like, but I totally agree that we need to be pushing that digital inclusion. Because that is the direction of travel. It's not going away, and if we don't support people to get involved, then they are going to be left behind, no matter what else we do. So thanks very much for that, Dave. Appreciate your answer.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, and it is, it's the pace of change of technology as well, isn't it? I think what a lot of the studies suggest is that lots of people kind of keep up with technology whilst they're in work, due to the nature of having to do stuff in work, but sometimes when they retire, maybe that journey stops, and if you're kind of not engage with something for a few years with the pace of change, then yeah, things can look very different when you go back to it, and can be, yeah, a little bit frightening.
Thanks, Dewi. That was brilliant. And an incredible amount of useful resources there for people to take away. And I suppose if councils are interested in doing something specific, they can make contact with you directly.
By all means. I think my contact details were on the last. I didn't get to the last page of the slides, but they are on the last page of the slides. I'll drop them in the chat as well. But by all means, visit our website, have a look around. Yeah, doubtless we will have done something in or near the communities that your communities. So yeah, please do get in touch. And yeah, well, we've currently got 6 months of the program left, so we've got a bit of time to do stuff. So yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
That's great. Thanks very much for supporting the session. It would be great if you could stay. There might be some questions that come up as we go through the council presentation, so that
No
would be.
problem.
Thanks very much. Okay, so I'm just going to hand over now to Councillor Maggie Kirk from Rhossili Community Council, who's going to give us a presentation on their successful laptop loan scheme and digital training that they provided for residents. So, are you there, Maggie?
Great, thanks very much. And bore da pawb. Diolch am y gwahoddiad I siarad â chi bore 'ma. It's really great to have the opportunity to tell you about our digital inclusion project. It formed part of a larger project that was funded by Swansea Council's Rural Development Partnership, and ran from August 22 to February 23. So quite a short project, although we did carry on unfunded after that. So I'm from Rhossili Community Council, and I co-led this project with a volunteer member of the community who had chaired our COVID volunteer response group. So the name of the bigger project is Rhossili Community Hub, connecting a community, and it represented a collaboration between Rhossili Community Council and our Rhossili Village Hall, and a small group of volunteers from that local community led volunteer COVID support group. Rhossili is a small rural area, geographically quite dispersed, and the demographic is one of rapid aging, and I'm adding to that. So we face a lot of the challenges that others have faced with digital exclusion and lack of confidence in using computers. So what I want to do, if I can have the next slide, please, is to just touch on that hub project itself to give you the broader context for how the digital inclusion pilot project fitted into that. So I'll touch on that, and then I'll go through the phases that we went through for our digital inclusion project, the needs survey, planning the sessions, delivering them, evaluating them, and looking at the outcomes. But the image there is the homepage of the community website that we developed as part of the bigger project. So if I could have the next slide, please. So the idea grew from how our local support group had responded to the COVID pandemic. And we'd realised that in providing voluntary services to the community, we faced a bigger issue that wasn't just about community resilience, but also about digital exclusion and social isolation. And the inherent difficulties then in communicating across this dispersed community. And we'd set up a simple website ourselves. We actually put it together over a weekend and, you know, paid for it all ourselves, paid for the hosting. But we realized that going forward, we needed something more sophisticated that could be more responsive in times of crisis. So we wanted to create this one-stop shop community website for local news and information. And again, from the pandemic, we realized that the information that people needed access to wasn't just about health. It was about, you know, where can I get some food from, and, you know, other broader questions. So we sought funding then through the Rural Development Partnership, and we had the, you know, modest funding. So none of our time was costed for. It was all done on a voluntary basis. And the community website itself was set up very much through participatory, interactive approaches, getting people into the village hall, and you can see images there of people working in groups around tables to tell us what it was they really wanted on a website, what facilities they wanted it to offer, and so on. Even what colour scheme would you like for it? And so you know, we went ahead with that, but we realised that, of course, it's no good having an all singing, all dancing website if people are unable to access it or don't have any confidence in using the facilities. So one of the spin-offs of the whole project was to create the IT project, which we called initially IT for the Terrified, but then somebody said maybe that's not such a brilliant name because you're flagging up that it's something to be terrified of. So we just called it something else. I've forgotten what now. So part of that was, first of all, getting equipment to support us in delivering IT support sessions. And that equipment was all refurbished. We made sure it was all SIM enabled. And through another funding source, charitable funding source, we got free SIM cards so that people could use the devices if they didn't have Wi-Fi. We got together a group of people who were willing to facilitate these sessions, and we were very fortunate that we had IT experts in the community, including, you know, a qualified IT teacher and lecturer, and they were all very willing to give up their time for free on doing this. And we also recognised that in a short 6-month project, by the time we got to the point where we could start delivering sessions, we had very little time left, that we needed to commit to offering ongoing support as well. So next slide, please. So just as with the website development, we recognised that we needed to get people really had to start the project by asking people what they needed. So we carried out a paper-based survey because it would be a bit ironic to do it all online. And we included the survey itself in our annual magazine, our Christmas magazine, which gets delivered to every property in the area. And we developed the survey, we tested it on family and friends to make sure it made sense and you know, people would be able to answer it. And the sorts of questions we asked were whether or not people had internet-enabled devices and which they were, whether or not they had access to the internet via Wi-Fi, whether they'd like to borrow equipment to help them practice any skills they picked up. We asked them to self-rate their IT skills and what particular topics would they like to know more about. Then obviously we analyze those to inform the next steps. So we had 41 responses in total out of about 110 properties where of primary residence rather than secondary and holiday homes. So all bar one had at least one device, although we subsequently discovered when they brought those devices to the workshops that some of them were really more or less steam driven and were probably more of a hindrance than a help. All bar three had internet access via Wi-Fi, but over 70% identified the need for additional help, and those were in some quite basic areas as well. So the top topics were about staying safe online, using QR codes, which we weren't expecting, using email, using Zoom, and so on. So if we look at the next slide, when we start to plan the sessions, as I say, it was directly informed by the needs analysis, and priority was given then to the topics that scored the highest. And the little insert there shows you what those topics were and how many people attended those sessions. Ask My GP was another quite popular one. So we wanted to focus on keeping the sessions relevant and interactive using a workshop style, keeping them relaxed and friendly. And a bit like Dewi was saying in the previous presentation, we wanted a sort of tea and tech approach, except it was more like coffee and computers. I've talked about the facilitators that we had. It was also important, we felt, to keep to time so that the sessions ran from between 1 to 1.5 hours, and we always wanted to leave them wanting more rather than thinking, when is this ever going to end? So we made a point of, if we could, even finishing 5-10 minutes early. We evaluated every session. That was a requirement of the project funding anyway, but it was useful to inform us so that we could make changes on the hoof, and offering follow-up support. And that ranged from giving our phone numbers for people to contact us for help so that we could give telephone advice, and also one-to-one follow-up at people's homes if that's what they wanted. The other thing we did was that we offered an open surgery after the monthly coffee mornings that the village hall held, so that they could just come up to us afterwards with queries. And that was also actually very much welcomed, and people took us up on that. So when it came to delivering the sessions, which is the next slide, please, we, as I say, we promoted ongoing engagement by making sure the sessions were friendly and accessible. And we briefed our facilitators about very limited use of jargon. And if you used jargon, it had to be explained and check understanding. The pace was set by attendees, although the facilitators had their own plan of how they wanted the session to go. If more time was taken up on one topic or one aspect rather than the other, so be it. We could always offer follow-up later. And where appropriate for each session, we differentiated according to the abilities of those present. So for emails and spreadsheets, for example, the facilitators took 2 smaller groups. So there was a high facilitator to attendee ratio, and all the sessions were free, including the tea and very nice biscuits. So in the next slide, I just show you an example of how some of the sessions were structured. So here you can see that there's like a group session to start with the facilitator talking through the brief introduction to the topic, and giving some practical help then, going around people with their iPhones usually, or smartphones, showing them where they could access their QR code, in this case, their QR scanner, and helping them to see how to use that. And then we would have another aspect to the session where they could then practice applying the knowledge and skills that they've been shown and demonstrated. So for the QR codes, we had a quiz, and I had great fun going around the area, making myself very suspicious in the village shop, photographing QR codes where I found them on all sorts of things. Squash bottles, I think, was one of them. And then following a very dirty van one day, I thought, well, there's a QR code, and I took a quick snap of that. It turned out it was actually Snapchat. And Tesco used QR codes quite widely. So we had quite an interesting quiz, and they also had to see if they could spot where the code had come from, which they all really enjoyed that. Next slide, please. So as well as using local expertise, we were also able to tap into wider networks for some of the actual sessions and for some of the follow-on sessions that we offered after the end of the project. And one of our volunteers has quite high-level links in the UK government, and we were able to entice along 2 experts, one on IT security, I think, the government advisor on IT security, and the other with a significant role in AI. And they were absolutely fascinating, as you might expect. And the staying safe online, we had 2 sessions from this one person, and they were very well received. Everyone came away saying that they were now going to implement some of the things they'd taught, they'd learned about. We also had a talk from a practical session, in fact, from a published author and photographer on making better use of your smartphone or iPhone. And I certainly learned a lot from that. My photos are still a bit iffy there. So again, they were all things that had been asked for and were very well received. So in the evaluation, which is the next slide, please, we asked people to rate from 1 to 5, where 4 and 5 were, best ever, the extent to which individual sessions had increased their awareness, their understanding, encouraged them to apply new skills, and increased their confidence. Again, they were all very highly rated. As I said there, all sessions had a positive impact. across all 4 of those categories, with all bar one session gaining scores of at 4, not 5, by 3/4 of the attendees. One of the less people are a bit more equivocal about, interestingly, was the Ask My GP session, but that was more because it was a bit of a controversial area locally. There's a bit of there has been a bit of resistance to using it rather than the session itself. But importantly, for digital inclusion, all attendees scored a 4 or a 5 for increased confidence in, for example, in making Zoom calls, which was great to hear. And then the final slide, please. So what we found that, first of all, what we do has to be demand-led, and it has to be what people want, and that we remain people-focused and relevant to daily life. Spreadsheet was about what people wanted to do in hobbies or managing household accounts and so on. It wasn't some highfalutin stuff. Engaging people takes time. It can be disheartening at times. It requires creativity and innovation in approach and a lot of hard work. Enthusiasm is infectious, and if people can see the value of what you're doing, they will work with you. And we were bowled over by the support that we had from within the community. Funding is really helpful. It's very difficult without funding. But I want to finish with Dave's story. Dave told us as part of the evaluation, I found the course stimulating and it helped me get involved with IT, which I'd avoided learning. It also gave me access to a borrowed iPad to practice my newly acquired skills. I met members of the community who I hadn't met before, and some were learning new skills like me. And he goes on to say, this is somebody who's been quite digitally and socially isolated. I can now access the doctor, order food online, etc. I'm very grateful to those who ran the course for all their hard work and patience. So it's people like Dave that we did this, and just so pleased that we were able to help him. So diolch.
what a brilliant project, and I think there's something really important about those kind of trusted faces, and where communities, you've already got that engagement and kind of linking it into other kind of existing community activities. But yeah, being that kind of trusted face in the place where people would go for support for other things as well, can be a really good way of kind of not sneaking in, but kind of including some kind of digital inclusion support. So it sounds like a really brilliant project, Maggie, and yeah, definitely something. Like you said, it's difficult to find funding for these things, isn't it? But definitely something there should be funding for, because it sounds like you've had a massive impact.
Had to take a multi-pronged approach, recognizing that, as I said, it's no good offering a facility if nobody can access it, and how do you tell them about it if you just do it digitally? So it was multi-pronged. We used a range of online resources. So we had a Twitter account, we have a Facebook account, we have a community WhatsApp group which has a high number of members, and we also have an email, quite a large email distribution list, which covers most of the community. And we have notice boards, which we know people look at when they go to the bus stop, for example. But for some of it, it was just going around the houses. Like I say, the Christmas magazine, very popular. So we had articles in that about it. The community council updated people about it on a monthly basis, and talking to people at social events, if you pass them, on a walk. It has to be multi-pronged.
Thanks, Maggie. Another question from Geraint. Where did you start trying to obtain funding support?
Aha. Yeah, that was great fun as well. We actually initially applied to the Prince's Trust after approaching them, telling them about the project, and actually having a Zoom call with their funding representative, who was hugely encouraging about us putting in a bid, which we did, and was then turned down without any further explanation. But not disheartened, we sulked for a short while, but onward and upward. The next one we tried was the Research Rural Development Partnership, and we were successful on that with the first attempt. But we would have otherwise next tried the lottery funding.
Excellent. Thanks, Maggie. Just checking to see if we've got any other questions. It doesn't look like there are any further questions. So just a huge thank you from us for attending this morning and sharing this with us. So what an amazing project. Congratulations to you all for providing it to your community. Thanks again. Okay, finally we have with us Councillor Neil Walters, who is going to talk to us about plans to set up a digital cafe to support their local community.
So yeah, so I'm a community councillor from Llwchwyr Town Council in Swansea. So 2 years ago, we were, well, I suppose this project came about as a digital champion project. Came about because part of my work, I'm a social worker working for Swansea Council. And my job now, because I've been doing it for quite a while, so my job now is actually to train social workers. So I'm part of the training department. And we were lucky enough to have Compass come and do a presentation for us as part of my work. And that then led me to going back to council and having these conversations with my fellow councillors about the project. And there was a lot of interest. So that was brilliant then, because it led us then to inviting Compass to come and do a presentation for the council 1 month. So that sort of kick-started it. So could I ask you to click onto the next slide, please? So I suppose it came about because I was interested. So I had a real passion. As a social worker, I've worked with adults in the community for over 20 years. So I had a very good sort of work understanding, and I've met so many people in the community who are digitally isolated. I also have a mother who has got herself into trouble quite a few times with answering texts and emails that might have led to her losing an awful lot of money. So I think it was very fresh in my mind of just understanding digital skills of our communities. So that was the aim for the project, really. And it was very much myself and a friend of mine who is now our clerk for Llwchwyr Town Council. So putting our heads together, thinking, right, what is it we're trying to do? So it was very much about reaching out to our community, trying to help provide an opportunity for people to access the internet safely and confidently. And it was as simple as that. We kept it as basic as that because we didn't really know. The other aim for me as a community councillor is I'm very aware sometimes that we tend to focus a lot on the older generation of our community and actually forget some of the younger members of our community. So it was an opportunity I felt, because I had adult children now, but young men who have digital skills. So that was my thinking, to try and put the two together. Let's use the skills of our young people, give them an opportunity to become volunteers and share their skills and knowledge with perhaps some older people or people who are not confident IT users. So it was as simple as that, really. Can I go on to the next slide, please? Oh, and click again, because I was trying to be fancy. Just open it all up there. That's brilliant. Thank you. That's it. Okay, so we're looking at our resources. We were thinking there were a couple of things. Our internal resources was easy for us, because when I took it to council to have a chat about what does everyone think, is everyone interested, is everyone signed up to this idea of the project I had in mind, I had 100% support from all our community councillors and our county councillors as well. We've got 3 county councillors on our within our council. So they were very supportive. And I think part of their support was the demographic of our community council is, I would say, 2/3 are over the age of 70. And out of those 2/3, perhaps only a handful are confident IT users. So the community council themselves, the councillors themselves felt, yes, we could do with this support. Even if we don't reach our community, we ourselves need this support. So we were really lucky that we had that support from everyone. We have, well, say community councillor, I was in a position that I wanted to make this work. So it's about having that passion. And I listening to the end of Maggie again, it's sort of thinking about, you need the right people to take this through. And I was lucky that I did have a passion for this particular project. I had friends, I had a bit of network support as well, people who knew about these things. So that passion was there. And the other huge asset to us is that Llwchwyr Town Council have a welfare hall. So it's a big community hall that is used for community events, for, judo, all sorts of things, dancing, all sorts. excuse me. At the time, it did have Wi-Fi, but it was very, very patchy, you know. So, you know, but we did have this building as our resource, which was accessible to all, and you know, just a good base for us. So that was our sort of local resources. Then we were able to tap into the external one. Obviously, number one was Compass. Compass have been amazing, particularly at the beginning of this. And even though we haven't tapped into them for about a year now, they are very much on our radar of, right, we need to start upskilling again for some more projects. So we'll be tapping into Compass resource very soon. We were very lucky, SCVS, so it's Swansea Council for Voluntary Services. I think that's what SCVS stands for. We went to them, and they have been amazing for us. They've helped us with some policy guidance, because they already run a digital champion program. So they were very good for some policy guidance, and we were able to tap into some funding. And that funding was very much about the advertising for the project. So we managed to tap into that quite early on. And then last year we used the Rural Community Grant. So last summer we were able to upgrade our Wi-Fi in our welfare hall, and we've been able to purchase a few more pieces of equipment for members of the public to come and use while they're at the welfare hall. So that's been really helpful. In the last 6 months, we've got the police community support officers, the PCSOs. We have one who regularly attends our group now, and that has opened up a really interesting opportunity for us, which we weren't expecting. And it links into the passion of one of our other community councillors, who's got a very keen interest on helping people experiencing domestic abuse in the community. And again, so we linked that with my knowledge of how people with domestic abuse can call for help. And one of the barriers to people being able to call for help is not having access to Wi-Fi, not having access to a mobile phone that they can use without anyone noticing or checking on, not having an email address, and just having lack of resources to do that. So with the PCSO, we're going to be opening up, when we have our monthly coffee morning, which I'll explain in a minute, we'll be having a table with equipment set up and information available. So if any member of the community needed to come and use the tech to contact police, contact Women's Aid, you know, it could be anything. We could be talking about human trafficking, we could be talking about anything there. So we're going to open that up as an opportunity, and the PCSOs are supporting with us with that one. And in Swansea, we also have local community coordinators. So it's been a bit slow being able to tap into our local coordinator because of various reasons, but that's still a service that we're going to be tapping into to very much spread the word really about what we're doing. Okay, next slide, please. Excuse me. Some of the stumbling blocks along the way: volunteers come and go. When we started this project 2 years ago, we had 3 young people who were great with us. You know, they came to some of the training, they did a couple of events for us, but unfortunately they're young, they've moved on, they've left school, they've gone into work. So that was a little bit of a stumbling block, because as we know, volunteers do come and go. The other big stumbling block for us and has been, we've had our community clerk, councillor clerk, has retired. So he retired last summer, so we've had to advertise, and thankfully we've got a new community clerk now who is amazing, and she is, well, her knowledge about tech is absolutely brilliant. So, you know, she's going to be a huge asset. So she's still settling in. But that's going to be a huge bonus to us, because the role of the town clerk for us is so important. One, it's about looking at following through funding. It's also about managing the policies, and it'll help us with managing volunteers when we start recruiting more volunteers. So that's been a bit of a stumbling block, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel on that one. And the other stumbling block has been advertising. And I don't know if it's a little bit about what Maggie was saying at the end there. You know, it's no point us putting it all the advertising on Facebook, Twitter, whatever, because the people we're trying to reach are not the people who are necessarily using those platforms. So one of the grants that we had from SCVS, we used that to put an advert in a community magazine. We're going to be having sort of flag posts put outside our welfare hall that we can take up and down when we are present for people to know that we're there, and to buy a little bit of tech. But the advertising has been a bit of a stumbling block for us. We've got an event coming up in a couple of weeks' time, so we've just had posters printed. So it's the old, you know, plodding the streets, putting the posters up, going into the local chip shop and hairdressers and all the rest of it. So you know, you can't beat, you know, old-fashioned word of mouth and face-to-face connection. So that's been a little bit of a stumbling block, but again, with the support of the town clerk, that will be resolved, and we'll be a bit better at it this year, we're hoping, to try and get the numbers in. Okay, next slide, please. There we are, and just, yeah, there we are, lovely. Oh, journey so far, that's it. Okay, so we started back in the summer of 2023. Feels a long time ago now. And I think when we started it, we were a little bit ad hoc. We were like, right, okay, we'll just set up a pop-up session, we'll advertise it and see what happens. You know, and we went to sort of craft fair, we were going to go to a community council, and then a local fair in the local park. And then weather called it, you know, rained it off, and it was just a little bit all ad hoc at the beginning. But what happened then last summer, is that we sort of settled in. First, we had a little bit of an identity crisis last year. It all came when we had the Wi-Fi in the welfare hall. We weren't sure, are we going to advertise it as a digital cafe? But then, you know, we sort of saw the downfall of that is that perhaps people might come to us thinking that we're going to start fixing people's laptops, and, you know, people who don't want to get involved with IT and just not going to come. And they're the ones that we want to beckon into the doors, really. So what we've morphed now into a monthly community cafe. And then we've got in brackets at the bottom with digital access. So we will still, once a month we have effectively a coffee morning. We have people come in to give us talks about different topics, but sometimes it's just a cafe, and we have tables out with the equipment out, and we all sit round and have a chat, and people just bring whatever it is they want to talk about. So we started with a set agenda, thinking, right, we're going to do, you know, sort of safety one week and accessing the GP another week. We had this plans back at the beginning, but that fell apart quite quickly because people had very personal problems that they wanted to resolve. So there's no point talking about something they weren't interested in. So we very much now take the lead of whoever turns up, whatever they want to talk about, and you know, we do our best to resolve the problems as we go. The things that we plan to do this year is build a better connection with our local schools. We have an A-level college in our area as well. So the plan is this year is to try and really tap into the young people to build on those volunteering opportunities, and we're going to increase our advertising. So we're now falling into a nice pattern of once a month, we're a community cafe with digital access. We are going to be building out our website. There will be information on the website to help people if they need to reach out to us to act. So, for example, like I mentioned about accessing Wi-Fi for those people who need safety, we're going to be able to build that onto our website as well, so people can reach out if they need to. So it's still a lot of work to do, but you know, we're really enjoying it. And 2 years later, we've still got a lot of passion, and there's still a lot of energy in the project, really. There we are. And I think I'm on to my last slide. Ooh. There we are. So this is what success looks like for us so far. So since last summer, every month we've had a cafe, and the minimum we've had is 3. And I think January we had 3. But on the whole, we're getting around 10 people. There's some familiar faces, but it is new people every month. We have someone new arrive. And what's really interesting, when we first started, we had all the kit set up, ready to go, power cables everywhere. People didn't want to look at those. They were all bringing their own. They all brought their phones out. People were bringing tablets. We've had a couple of people bring laptops, and they want to know how to do it on theirs. So that's what we do now. We sort of have a round table sort of discussion when people are sort of, you know, we'll do one-on-one sessions, or we'll have 2 or 3 people with a volunteer working through a particular topic for them. But what's wonderful is that we're also getting people who've been coming a couple of months, teaching the people who are new coming in, you know, for example, just how to link into the Wi-Fi in the community hall, in the welfare hall, you know. So there are some people, because it's that typical thing of you need to practice the skill. So that's what we're seeing. So that's been a huge success, and we're really hoping that those figures will grow. We've got to be careful because we need the volunteers to be available. So, you know, we are being cautious on our numbers there. Like I said, another success is that linking in with PCSOs and us really thinking about digital inclusion and thinking about vulnerable groups in our community. So about bringing that as an opportunity to provide a safe space for people. And another success, the young people who started 2 years ago with us, we've had 2 of them use their volunteer work as digital champions on their CVs, and they are now successfully in work. I'm not saying it was just that got them into work, but certainly I think there's a very strong element to a young person's CV as a volunteering opportunity. So, so all in all, it feels not as organised as the project that you just heard about, but we're very much responding to what the community need. We're enjoying it. We have good fun, you know, so taking photos at Christmas, you know, sort of sharing emails, sharing stories, sharing some horror stories as well in the cafe of, you know, people who have nearly been, you know, robbed of a lot of money. Yeah, so we're seeing it as a success, but it's been because of Compass. I think that was our sort of the smart spark that ignited it for us. So yeah, so looking forward to the future.
That's brilliant presentation. What I love about these projects as well is that there are so many other benefits that fall out of them, aren't there? Your overriding desire is to support people with digital inclusion, but also what they get from that is that they get you get intergenerational activity. You get solving problems of social isolation. You know, lots of councils run warm hubs through the winter, and some of these kinds of activities are perfect for a project like yours, aren't they? You know, where you're just bringing people together and then collectively solving problems, almost sometimes by stealth. People don't really realize that they have them. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much for talking to us today, and yeah, keep us posted on how things develop. Has anyone got any questions for Nia? Oh, Maggie's got a question.
Yeah, thanks, Nia. That was really interesting, and it sounds like you've got a great project there. I'm really interested in the initiative about involving the PCSO for people to access something where they can be anonymous. How does that work for urgent situations? Do they have access 24/7 or?
Yeah, I think we've got a really good working relationship with our PCSO, and our town clerk whereas our town clerk originally used to work from their own home, they now work from the welfare hall. So there's an office in the welfare hall. So the PCSO is able to contact the town clerk. So if there was someone who needed something urgently, we could arrange it during sort of relative office hours. You know, we're not an emergency service by any means, but it's a case of just knowing where the resources are. So we have the police come to our council meetings every couple of months. So we've updated them, and they were and that's where it started actually. We were taught, because there was, like I said, we had a councillor whose passion is to how do we support people experiencing abuse in our community. She brought that up as a topic, and then it evolved from there really. It was quite organic in the way it sort of sprung up. And the police were very, very interested in what we had to offer, and that's where they were able to then sort of commission the PCSO to come along to our session. So the PCSO has been physically present when she's able to, and she's got leaflets, information that she can leave with us. The laptops are stored securely, and the Wi-Fi is always available for people who are in the hall, and the hall is used quite a lot. So yeah, so, you know, we're early days, and, you know, we all hope that it's one of those things that we never hope anyone that will ever need, but the reality is it's likely there will be. So it's just about being prepared for the what ifs.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maggie. David's got his hand up.
Yeah, just to say, yeah, kind of really so lovely to hear about how you've kind of developed and grown that and sustained that support and are looking to kind of develop it further. So yeah, really, well done from us. I think it's brilliant when we see this type of activity sustained in communities. So that's excellent. I was just going to touch on a point, and it might be something. Is it Russell that you've been engaging with? Yes. So Russell's brilliant. You mentioned kind of engaging sixth form colleges and stuff. So we don't currently do it, but prior to April 2024, we ran as part of Digital Communities Wales our Digital Heroes element to the project, which very much focused on training kind of school-aged, under 18s, essentially to become a digital champion, but done in a way that kind of tied in with the curriculum and other bits and pieces, with the aim of then going out and supporting in their communities. So it might be worth a conversation, because there may be some bits and pieces or even some resources that share that aren't currently on our website, but things kind of more historical resources, or there may be some links to some schools in the area that we've trained in the past as well, which
because one of the projects for young people we were thinking, I know the Duke of Edinburgh usually comes up around Easter time, and they're all desperate for some volunteering opportunities, which is quite nice, because you're looking sort of like a 3 or 4 month volunteering chunk, which is something we're hoping to tap into. And we also have a Welsh speaking comprehensive school just outside our area, but it's obviously pupils from our area who have a sixth form college. So we're hoping that we've got enough Welsh speakers in our council to be able to link in to have some Welsh speakers as well, because again, things can get lost in translation. But no, that's really helpful to know, and we will be looking. Thank you.
Duke of Edinburgh's a brilliant idea, isn't it? I remember my children doing it and looking for opportunities. Geraint had a question. Do you find that it's the same people attending the monthly meetings regularly, or are there new people dropping in all the time?
We've got a core, I think, of regulars, but we tend to have at least 2 people who are new every time, which is really nice. So we are seeing, it's not the same group that we've got now that we had 6 months ago. So and I suppose what we're hoping is that people will come in when they need us. But as we start to grow, so part of our thinking is why we didn't want to advertise it as a digital cafe and try and advertise it as a community cafe with with lots of other things going on, is that we will surreptitiously gain the interest of people who didn't realise they needed or were interested in some of these topics. So but it is interesting that it has been a change, because I thought it might be the same, especially with the Warm Hub type effort as well, but it hasn't been, so that's quite encouraging.
Yeah, and I think we've seen, certainly with lots of the councils that we've spoken to, is that it can be a slow burn as well, can't it? But also there's the ripple effect of what you do. So for example, as you said earlier, if you give one person some training, and then that sort of ripples out, and you might not necessarily see that, they take it home to a partner or share it with a friend, or so it's definitely got lots of benefits. Anything else in the chat? Vanessa says GCSE and A-level Welsh back also have a voluntary element, and schools are always looking for opportunities for young people. So yeah, that's a really great comment. Any other questions or comments from anyone this morning for Nia or Maggie or Dewi? Well, we've got this lovely experience here. Is there any councils that are currently thinking of implementing something, or have got particular digital issues in their communities that they want to raise? It's a good chance to bounce some ideas off some people with some experience. If you don't want to do it today, please feel free to submit any questions or comments, and we can get some answers for you if that's helpful.
Can I just chip in something else? I think one of the fears about a digital project is your own tech skills. I am not a tech person. I work full time, so I am forced to use tech as a result of my work, but I wouldn't let that stop people. Don't think you have to be really, really good at tech to be able to run this project, really, because I'm not. It's about knowing people who are, having people like Compass, having other people that you can tap into. Yeah, so I think it's the fear of tech sometimes slows us down.
Yeah, and I think it's also the way they position things, isn't it? You don't have to position something as we're running a digital project or a digital exclusion something, but about the perhaps talking to people about how you can solve the problems they've got, like if they're having problems applying for benefits, or sort of the big issue last winter with pension credit. People might it's like you said, it's sort of digital support surreptitiously by stealth, which is often the thing that brings people in, isn't it? So
Sometimes
that's
I don't know, but we can have a look together and develop some of those Google skills where you don't know all the answers, and I think it's so powerful if you go, well, I don't know, but we can develop the skills to be able to find out together as well, which can be a quite powerful way of doing it.
Yeah, great. David has a question for Maggie. You mentioned you had presenters for different subjects. How did you go and find these people?
It was just through networks that we had already. As I said, our project co-lead has a senior role in UK government, and she, in her everyday job, meets experts across the piece who were very willing to help us out. One of them joined by Zoom, and that was great. So it was really even in a small community. The power of network shouldn't be underestimated. There'll always be somebody who can suggest someone and twist their arm a little bit.
Great, thanks, Maggie. Lauren, are you there? I think you've got a question.
I am. Hi. For some reason, I couldn't raise my hand, so also suffering with some sort of technical issue here, which is quite embarrassing at 43. I feel like you should know how to do that. First of all, can I just say thank you for the presentations? I just found that really inspiring, and I feel like this is something we can definitely implement in our communities. We have the facilities, we have the Wi-Fi, and we are definitely struggling to reach certain people within the population. So I'm really looking forward to taking on board some of your ideas. This is on topic and also slightly off topic. I actually have a staff member that is struggling to use technology and is quite afraid of it. And I wondered if anybody had any advice around that, or if anybody could point me towards some resources to help that person at all.
I guess it kind of depends what kind of level and what kind of level of confidence they're at and where their digital skills are at generally. But if they are generally very low, the Learn My Way platform that I mentioned earlier is a really, really good introduction. Like I said, it goes from the very basics of what these buttons are on a device, like power, volume, whatever it might be, right through the whole kind of gambit of essential digital skills, and they are really bite-sized, kind of understandable, simple. Yes, that is a good way to start. Again, I recognize telling someone with low digital skills to go to a website to learn digital skills can be a little bit counterintuitive, and maybe some of that kind of initial face-to-face support and hand-holding through that might help. Is there a bit of resistance there as well, or?
Yeah, resistance and fear, I believe. Resistance and fear, and probably worrying about a lack of time, but that probably comes from the fear aspect. They could probably do with some in-house training, which is something I try to do whenever I can, but sometimes it could do with being a third party. They can use certain things. I mean, they use email, but things like filing in OneDrive, so that we can try and work the way we need to work in the council, and using spreadsheets and things like that. There's a real reluctance there, and you know, there are other ways of working, and we do use paper methods as well, but we'd like to move forwards, and it's just tricky to support them in the right way.
So it would be in relation to some of more of those office type features, kind of like you said.
Yeah, but then I feel like because they're quite a member of the community as well, you know, if they knew how to do this, they could come along to those meetings and be a support. Because also, I think sometimes when it's older people perhaps met with younger people, there's a fear there as well, isn't there? You know, that they're not my people. They perhaps don't understand where my fear lies. So if they were able to be involved in that and help with those skills, I think that would be really beneficial.
Where are you based, Lauren?
Pentec, Cardiff.
Yeah.
We cover several villages, so we've got quite a large area.
Yeah.
If you need any further support around this subject, please come back to us, and if we don't have answers, we can point you to organisations who might. So just for me, just to thank our guest speakers today for their participation. Digital access is clearly no longer a luxury, it's an essential for all of us for work, education, healthcare, and just generally staying connected. And we've seen how digital exclusion, especially in our really rural areas, sort of deepens inequality. And if we have better infrastructure or affordable broadband and training around digital skills, we can hopefully bridge those gaps and make improvements to the lives of the people in our communities. And community and town councils, as we said right at the beginning, can play a vital role in championing championing digital inclusion by supporting and providing local initiatives and just generally advocating for better connectivity. We can all help ensure that no one gets left behind. So thanks again for joining us today. I hope you found the session valuable and useful, and given you some ideas if you are thinking of implementing some of these projects yourself in your communities, about some of those ideas you can take forward. Thanks again for joining us today, and great to see you all. Have a lovely day. Diolch.